Most parents assume they would know if something was wrong. But avoidant attachment doesn't come from dramatic moments. It comes from patterns so small and so repeated that nobody notices them. When a parent is present for the practical things but absent for the emotional ones, the child draws one conclusion: that they are on their own. And here's what makes that conclusion so dangerous. It doesn't feel like a conclusion. It feels like a personality. The child doesn't think, "My emotional needs won't be met." They think, "I am someone who doesn't need much." And they carry that identity into every relationship for the rest of their life. The avoidant child doesn't stop needing love, they stop showing it. And that difference between needing and showing is where everything begins. Most people, when they hear the words avoidant attachment, picture a child who was obviously failed, a parent who was absent, abusive, a home where something visibly went wrong. But avoidant attachment almost never comes from those homes. It comes from homes that look completely fine, where the child is loved, where the parents are present, where birthdays are celebrated, and nobody would ever use the word troubled. And yet, something is consistently missing. Not in dramatic ways, in patterns. Quiet, invisible, repeated patterns that a child's developing brain picks up on with absolute precision. Because children are not waiting for a big moment to decide whether the world is safe. They are running experiments from the first weeks of life. They reach out and they wait. They show a feeling and they watch your face. They need something, and they track what happens next. Over months and years, those experiments produce data. And the nervous system builds a map, not based on what you intended, not based on how much you love them, but based on what actually consistently happened when they came to you. When the answer comes back the same way enough times, reaching out creates discomfort rather than connection, the nervous system makes a decision. Stop reaching. The first year. It starts in the first year of life, and it starts with something that looks completely harmless. A baby cries. The parent responds, but with visible tension. Or after a delay. Or by immediately trying to stop the crying rather than sitting with the child in it. A kind of mechanical comfort that gets the job done but doesn't quite land. None of these look like failure. They look like parenting. And in isolation they are. One tense response doesn't teach avoidance. One delayed comfort doesn't shape a nervous system. But the nervous system isn't tracking single events. It's tracking patterns. And when the pattern is consistent enough, when emotional reaching is met often enough with distance, discomfort, or deflection, something shifts. Not in words, not consciously. In the most fundamental biological way, the nervous system starts expecting that reaching will not work, and it starts adapting to that expectation. If showing need creates discomfort, show less need. If crying leads to tension, cry less. If reaching out leads to distance, stop reaching. The baby becomes easier, calmer, more self-contained, and the parent almost always feels relieved, because a calm baby feels like success. Nobody tells you that a calm baby can also be a baby who has already started learning not to ask. The toddler. By the time the child is 2 or 3, the pattern is already running. But it's running in ways that look like strengths. Most toddlers are emotionally chaotic. They sob, they rage, they collapse onto the floor because a cracker broke the wrong way. And they bring all of it to their parents, repeatedly, because they've learned that bringing it works. That's what secure attachment looks like. Messy, loud, completely trusting. The avoidantly attached toddler looks different. They cry less. They recover faster. When something upsets them, they turn away from the parent rather than toward them. They go quiet. They self-soothe. They seem remarkably composed for their age, and the parent notices, and feels, without quite knowing why, a current of pride. This child is resilient. This child is independent, but this is where it gets darker. What the parent doesn't see is what's happening inside the nervous system. Because the child isn't feeling less, the child is suppressing more. Research measuring cortisol and heart rate in avoidantly attached children found that their bodies spike. The stress response is completely real, biologically identical to any other child's. But when asked how they feel, they report almost nothing. Calm. Fine. The suppression had become so complete it was operating below the level of conscious awareness. The body was screaming. The mind had simply stopped listening. This is not resilience. This is a nervous system that learned, through hundreds of small moments, that showing distress produces something uncomfortable. Not punishment, not obvious rejection, just a subtle closing, a tension. A response that resolves the situation but doesn't quite meet the child where they are. So the child stops bringing it, not consciously, the way you stop reaching for something that's never quite there when you reach. Eventually, you just stop. The school years. The school years are when the pattern stops being a strategy and starts becoming an identity. The avoidantly attached child is often a teacher's favourite, self-sufficient, doesn't need reassurance, never creates drama, seems mature beyond their years in a way that makes every adult around them relax. At home, they are the easy child. They say they're fine. They handle disappointments quietly. They don't ask for help, not because they don't need it, but because asking stopped feeling like an option somewhere along the way. But here's what's actually happening beneath the surface. These children learn early what gets a response, and what gets a response is achievement. When they do something impressive, the energy in the room shifts. Eyes light up, voices warm. Attention arrives without them having to ask for it. When they struggle or hurt or need, the response is more muted, more awkward, more likely to come as advice or distraction than actual presence. So they invest in performance. They become the responsible one, the capable one, the one who makes everything look easy. And underneath all of it, they are profoundly alone. Not because no one is around, but because no one has ever actually met them. Only their performance. This is what avoidant attachment does. It produces children who are easy to be around and impossible to truly know. The Tuesday afternoon. There is a moment in many of these childhoods that doesn't look like a moment. It's an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. The child is 9, maybe 10. Something happened at school. Something embarrassing, frightening, or sad. They come home carrying it. They hover near you in the kitchen. They watch your face. And in the space of a few seconds, without knowing they're doing it, they run a calculation. Are you busy? Do you seem stressed? Will this be too much? And then they decide, as they have decided dozens of times before, that it isn't worth it. They go to their room. They close the door. They do what their nervous system was trained to do. Process it alone. You never know this happened. You don't know about the calculation. You don't know what they were carrying when they walked through that door. You don't know they chose, again, not to come to you. Adult consequences plus the cruel irony. And then they grow up. From the outside, they look completely fine, competent, independent, together in all the ways that count. But in their close relationships, in the moments that require real vulnerability, they hit a wall they can't explain. They become the partner who goes quiet in difficult conversations, the friend who disappears when things get real, the adult who seems to have everything together and feels, privately, completely alone in a room full of people who love them. They don't remember the calculation on that Tuesday afternoon. They don't remember learning not to reach, They just know that needing someone feels like a risk they can't bring themselves to take. And they spend years, sometimes decades, wondering what is wrong with them. Nothing is wrong with them. Their nervous system did exactly what it was designed to do. It found a strategy. It adapted. It survived. The adaptation was brilliant. The cost is enormous. Because here is the cruelest irony of avoidant attachment. The children most likely to develop it are the ones who gave their parents the least trouble. The ones who were called easy, mature, independent. The ones who were praised, directly and indirectly, for not needing much. They grew into adults who genuinely cannot tell the difference between strength and suppression, who have confused self-sufficiency with health for so long that needing someone feels not just uncomfortable, but shameful, who built an entire identity around not being a burden, and they are exhausted. Even when they don't know why. Because the strategy that kept them safe as children, make yourself smaller, need less, perform competence, costs something enormous to maintain across a lifetime. It costs real intimacy. It costs the possibility of being truly known. It costs the one thing every human nervous system is actually wired for, underneath all the adaptation. The experience of reaching for someone and having them be there. Love was never the question. The question was attunement. Whether your love came with the kind of presence that tells a child, your feelings are safe here. You don't have to manage yourself alone. That presence isn't always passed down. Many parents never received it either. They learned to contain instead of express, to confuse self-sufficiency with strength. It's not a moral failure, it's a transmission, passed quietly through generations until someone stops and asks a different question. Not, did I love my child enough, but, did my child ever feel safe enough to fall apart in front of me? That question changes everything.